So I've been trying my hardest to get back into Overwatch competitive recently, and honestly I've probably grinded the most hours in competitive that I've done in a long time. But one thing I'm going to say here is that, yeah, I probably gave the Bridget meta a little bit too much credit. As I've been playing through it a lot more and more, it's become less and less fun, honestly. And, you know, I even took down my video talking about how I loved it so much because now I just think it's alright, but probably not my favorite thing in the world. But one thing that I started to think about while playing in this meta that I feel like a lot of people absolutely hate was the idea, do people really even want a balanced meta? And I'm not saying by any means that the Bridget meta or Brigitte meta is balanced at all. But if it were, and if every character was viable, and if it was all dandy like that, would players really like how the game was playing? And today I'm going to talk about why I think in a lot of cases, people actually don't want a super balanced meta. And I know right here that as a community, of course, we want the game to be as balanced as possible, but I'm going to be mainly talking about players specifically, and you and me, not the community as a whole, because of course the community wants the meta to be as balanced as possible. When you talk to your friends, I mean, it's the thing you're going to be saying, because that's the best thing to say, you know, morally, I guess. But as far as people, I'm going to talk about why I think a lot of people don't necessarily want a super balanced meta. And I guess the first point I'm going to get to right here is that a lot of people start to get back into Overwatch because a certain character is good again, and a certain hero that they loved to play in the past has finally gone from trash to great. Now this could be Junkrat, could be Pharah, could be Doomfist, could really be any character, but you know, they were bad in the past and now they're good. And I think a thing a lot of people don't realize is that many players get back into the game simply because they know that they can pick a character that's stronger than other people's characters. And while that sounds kind of scummy, I mean, that is a reason why a lot of people want to get back into it, because their favorite character that they love to play is stronger than everyone else, and they can pick him up almost every single game. And that's a thing that I think a lot of people kind of forget about. I mean, if the game was balanced, every character would be playable, everyone would be good, exactly the same win rate, and there'd be no real exact character to play, and no real reason to get back into Overwatch. I mean, right now would be the exact same as 2 years ago, and I don't know, I guess a lot of people could be bored of that. A lot of people wouldn't have the motivation to come back into the character, and I guess maybe that's a problem with the people than with the game, but I think that could be a problem there. As well, I want to say something right here. Everybody wants to play the same hero always, and you couldn't do that if the meta was balanced. It's as simple as that. You couldn't always play Pharah if the meta was completely balanced, because Widowmaker would be really good. Well, not even really good, she'd just be okay. McCree would be okay, and you as Pharah would be okay, and I mean, since they're good, that means that they're probably going to be able to counter you, so I guess you're not that good. Well, at the same time, if they're bad, then your character's good, but then the meta's not really balanced. It just doesn't really work, and I think in a lot of situations, people are hoping that somehow everyone can be good, while at the same time not realizing that there are counters that can easily be picked up that, you know, depending on character strength, will just kind of make other people useless. And, you know, a lot of people are kind of happy when those counters aren't that great. And it makes them want to play the game a lot, because again, even if the meta was completely great and completely flatlined, you'd still have to, honestly, character swap a lot more. And while yes, I think that is a good thing, and while I would love if Overwatch promoted more character swapping, I think as far as the player base goes, there'd be a lot of people complaining that they can't play their favorite hero because there's too many other people that can counter them all the time. That's mainly where I'm going with this point. Overall, I think just in a lot of cases, people do like it when the meta favors their hero, and they kind of don't really think about that. Now, another point that I was thinking about is that it seems like everybody wants a balanced meta until annoying or easy characters are thrown into the mix. Because if you think about it like this, Junkrat and McCree should always be exactly equal strength. No matter how good you are at either of those characters, they should be just as good as each other. And of course, Genji and let's say someone like Symmetra, those should be equally strong as well. And you should be able to play Symmetra on every single map, the same as everyone else. And having a completely balanced meta like that, I think a lot of people would just not be that happy with it, because a lot of people want the more skill expressive characters to be better. And that's kind of as simple as it goes. The majority of players, I think, just accept the fact that, you know, if a character's harder to play, they kind of deserve to be better than the other characters. But At the same time, people kind of parade around the idea that the meta should be completely balanced. You can't really have both those ideas going on at the same time. And I know that's kind of annoying, and I know that you don't want to get characters that just get a lot of value out of their kit without way too much effort, like Junkrat, to be good. But honestly, if you do want a balanced meta, Junkrat and Widowmaker have to be just as good as each other all the time, which I guess you could kind of say is happening right now. But there is the fact that that does exist, and it's not something you can just completely ignore because you don't like to think about that. That's just kind of what happens. Now, to another point right here, I'm going to say that if the meta was balanced, it would be really hard for anybody to actually get into competitive at any time. Because at any time, when you log into a game of competitive, just about every hero could show up. And while I'm going to say right here that would be a good thing in some aspects, because you would have a lot more diversity, the games would be a lot different, that might be even more enjoyable, you have to remember that it would be kind of harder to get into. And the main thing that I'm going to say right here that is going to be harder for newer players to get into, well, not even newer players, just people that want to get back into the game, is the fact that there aren't going to be any good team comps. And I guess as well, even if there are good team comps, it's going to be kind of hard to pull them off, because if every character is playable and every character is strong, well, that means you're going to have to figure out how to mix and match characters. And I think especially if people are just one-tricking a huge assortment of different characters, it's going to be hard to fit those all onto a team, because right now, when there's a meta like Dive Comp, let's say, a lot of people pick up Winston, pick up Diva, pick up Genji, pick up Tracer, pick up all those characters and start to learn them and start to play them, and then you have a good team comp just because the meta's that way and those are the strong characters. But if there wasn't a strong character or strong characters at a current time, how could you really know what to play? How could you know what to do? And I know you'd probably just figure it out and, play some of the older meta comps, and eventually it would work out, maybe. But I think for a lot of players, it would just be extremely frustrating, because most people wouldn't be picking up a comp that looks good at all in any game because the characters are still kind of good. And I think a thing that you have to realize is that even if every character was completely balanced, it doesn't mean that every team comp versus another team comp is going to be completely balanced. Like, let's say that you're, again, playing like Pharah and Junkrat against a double hit scan. Well, I mean, if they're completely balanced, the double hit scan should probably win almost every single game. And how is that balanced? Well, that's kind of how the character counters work, and that's how overall the game's going to work. But yeah, I think as far as team comp goes, that honestly is a thing that is kind of hard to figure out. And one of the benefits, I'm going to honestly say, about having a meta that maybe isn't the most balanced, because especially if you're somebody like right now that plays an off meta character, that every single game you're going to be going against the meta, you know how to play against that, you know how to formulate your strategy. So even though you aren't that good in it, at least you know what to do. I think in a lot of cases, if there wasn't a meta ever showing up in any patch, and if it was completely balanced, it would be kind of hard to figure out what to do whenever, and a lot of players would be very frustrated at the game. And I think I should say right here is that overall, I think a lot of people would just kind of get bored of the game. If the meta was balanced for 2 years and you could play just about any character for 2 years straight, I mean, what would be fresh? There wouldn't be any different major team comps. It would just be kind of the same thing every single game. And I think that's something that people don't think about much. Having different characters getting buffs and nerfs all the time is exciting. And having them not exactly being the same strength is exciting. And seeing somebody as Torb pop off huge, even when he's not that great of a character, I think is something exciting as well. And I know partially a lot of players that just like to play bad characters, and that's just kind of how it goes. And I mean, I guess I'm not saying, don't rip away these people's terrible characters because they should be bad forever, but I guess that would be one side effect that could hurt certain players that like to play a certain way. And overall, I think just having it be somewhat unbalanced does, of course, make so that the game sometimes is a little more interesting. Now, I'm going to say right here that, of course, I do want the meta to be pretty balanced. I want every character to be at least playable somewhat. I just don't think that every character has to be, complete meta, 100% a good pick every single game. I'd rather have it where every character you can pick up if you get really good at them, but if you're just kind of average, maybe you can only play about a half to 3/4 of the cast. Then the meta will switch around, people get buffs and nerfs, and it'll just keep going like that. In the past and currently in Overwatch, I think that the game has essentially been like you can only play 8 characters at a time, and then it's really hard to play everybody else. I don't prefer that, but you can kind of see where I'm going with this. Having changing metas is kind of interesting. The Brigida meta, I think, is especially a bad example of how this can kind of go too far, changing metas, but if they could balance it a little bit better, I think there is a lot of benefit and a lot of genuine fun coming out of metas that will eventually change because the game is somewhat unbalanced. And I guess the final thing I'm going to say here is that the game will never honestly have a completely balanced meta. That's just not going to happen. That doesn't happen in any game ever. There will always be a good character and some bad characters, and sometimes the good character is good enough that they can beat their counters and they become the best character. And there's always going to be a best character. That's just kind of how it works in every single game. But I think overall, you know, it's all right. As long as the game keeps changing, I think it's going to continue to just be a fun experience, and you just kind of have to take it for its worth. And honestly, if you hate the current meta, then just don't play for a few weeks, or maybe don't play for a few months. Just go on quick play, just go on arcade, play in the deathmatch mode, deathmatch competitive, whatever. You're not forced to play the game, and honestly, just wait until another meta comes up that benefits you, because it probably will, and you're probably going to have a lot of fun with it. Currently, right now, I like playing Reinhardt, so it's been good for me. In the past, I don't really like playing Dive, so that's been bad for me. But as long as you wait long enough, and in most cases, for most characters, the game does kind of change up and help you quite a bit. Even Hanzo, who's been the worst character in the game for so long, has finally gotten quite strong. Maybe a little even overpowered, but yeah, that's kind of cool as well. But in the end, that's all I'm going to say here today, guys, about a balanced meta. And yeah, I'm probably wrong about some of these things. I know that. I also do know that having a balanced meta would be really interesting long term, because it would be less of a, I guess it would be a lot more based off skill, because it would be more based off what player is the best than what player is picking the best character, which could be interesting as well. There are a lot of benefits I see to having a balanced meta, but today I want to talk about why, for most people, I don't think they'd actually really want one if they had the chance to put it up and then they had to play the game for like 2 or 3 years with that. With that all said, though, guys, thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Hope I could kind of take off some rose-tinted glasses of the future, and of the past, I guess. I don't know exactly. Just something I wanted to talk about, and maybe not the most important thing at this time, but I think it's a good thing to think about, to realize that the meta isn't also bad right now, and it's all right that it's not completely balanced. And while we should, you know, strive towards a more balanced meta and to make more characters viable and to make more characters fun, you know, it's at least all right where it is. But as always, guys, that has been my own opinion. If you have your own, please leave that down in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this video, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button to see more videos like this. And as always, guys, thank you all for watching, and have a wonderful day.